Here we go. Hi, oops. Yeah, it says we're live. Okay, good. I'm Tom Lowenhaupt, and I'm here with a couple of other folks talking about the .nyc top-level domain, and they'll briefly introduce themselves. Robert, maybe you could start.
Hi, I'm Robert Pollard. I'm like Tom. I'm a member of the .nyc advisory board, and have been involved in information technology and sustainability and public. Phil?
Yeah.
And I'm Phil Konigsberg. I'm a Northeast Queens community advocate interested in finding out more about connecting .nyc.
Right. Phil's a bit of a regular with us here. And, you know, I'd just like to comment that Phil is not as pixelated as you are, Robert. So if I were you, I know you guys get if you don't do it intentionally, it's adequate. You know, I mean, I think it's kind of cool, actually. I don't know if he looks that way to you, Phil, but often it's somewhat pixelated. And I was thinking, you know, Phil is not. Phil is less so. So it's adequate. But if you're paying, I know you pay extra for your cable connection, and I think they could, you know, give you a few more wavelengths or whatever, megacycles or whatever the hell they're missing there. But
which was one of the interesting focuses in several of the presentations was about broadband in New York City, and that would. Did you, Phil, listen to Mayor de Blasio's Internet Week speech?
No, I don't think I was. I didn't see it. No, I don't know when I was not available.
Yeah, it was this past Monday, and maybe Robert, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'll send the link too. But no, it was interesting. He's, you know, he came across with a strong commitment to internet access. Talked about a number of initiatives, including this free Wi-Fi from payphones in the Harlem area, and generally it was pretty progressive. And one of the things I thought was interesting is he really spoke favorably of the dimension of information community to look at some ways of kind of disrupting and shaking up, because he only gave one sentence right at the end of very close to the end of the
Picture is freezing.
Yeah. Yep, I'm getting the same thing here, Phil. We'll give it a second and see what happens. But his speech was about kicking off Internet Week. This is we're at the end of Internet Week today, and it started on Monday, I guess. So de Blasio gave this speech and outlined a number of initiatives that his administration has, and I thought the more interesting part, Robert, you're struggling. We still don't hear you though. There we are. Okay, now you're back, Robert. Almost. I think you're live again,
okay.
Robert.
All right. Interesting enough, I mean, in the little picture down the bottom. Okay. I don't.
There it goes again. You can tell by the little.
Pixelated. And for a while there, Tom, you were just there, your face in a circle.
Huh.
So.
Well, if we only had audio, it would be fine. You know, I'd be happy to have little pictures with just the audio present, but c'est la vie, you know. We'll see what we can do. But yeah, getting back to the mayor, Robert, and I like the other parts of his speech where he kind of emphasized the broader role of the mayor in emphasizing or facilitating development of the tech industry. You know, he talked about how his housing program will provide housing for the people in the tech business, how his transportation program will you know, provide good subways and allow people to get there without getting killed in the street, and how his pre-K program will contribute to an educated population, and you know, so a very broad infrastructure emphasis on some of his actions, rather than you know, point by point focusing on you know, this program led by this program is going to do A, B, and C that a Bloomberg might have given. So it kind of I don't know, short shrifted, is that the word? Our effort here, which is what Robert was talking about when he got cut off a minute ago, that it was just a one sentence. You know, he just said .nyc is going to be arriving and providing names for organizations, individuals, and businesses in the city, or not much more than that. And so you know, I wasn't delighted with that, but you know, I could understand that. And he, you know, we had suggested some other stuff that he could have done, but you know, he's the mayor, so that's where we.
Right, and I think, you know, Jeff Merritt had mentioned before that they were somewhat reluctant to promote it too much until it's available, which I'm not convinced is the right approach, because I think a lot of people, particularly those who don't have a web presence, would really want to
yeah, I don't know.
While we're waiting for...
need some time, and they say, yeah, I'm going to get one of these. And they could essentially, it would be relatively, they'd have plenty of time then to prepare their, you know, changing the references on the website.
Right.
Right. So that when they want to go live, more or less right away.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
Anyhow, that's something I think.
I met this morning with a woman from this Van Allen Institute. We were talking to them about doing an event, co-sponsoring an event of some sort. And at the end, she told me that Van Allen is this 100-year organization that is a leader in certain architectural areas and planning areas. And at the end, she told me that they had been approached by some group who's sponsoring an effort in the city here for the ARCHI, A-R-C-H-I, I think it is, .ARCHI, some group out of France who's trying to develop that TLD. And you know, I emphasized to her that, you know, with 1,000 TLDs out there, that's the reason New York has to be done thoughtfully and with notice, so that people can, you know, if you make a commitment to ARCHI, if you're Van Allen, and then all of a sudden you hear at the end of the summer that the mayor is, or the city is pushing .nyc, you know, if you made a commitment, it's harder to make a change, you know. So I think, Robert, you're absolutely right that the city should be focusing on this and putting some information out there. You know, look what's coming. You know, looking ahead a little bit.
Right, get ready, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know why they don't. And meanwhile, though, you know, the point that I made yesterday, which I have to post that presentation, but that the clock keeps running. You know, that this is August 8th is off the cliff for us if we don't. You know, if we haven't made any significant changes by then into the direction that we're going in, it's not going to be a totally developed, totally prepared and developed TLD, and I don't know what the future for it holds in that respect. So getting, you know, although did anybody? I know Robert did, but Phil, did I give you a copy of the Monday's article in the Gotham Gazette? Do you read the Gotham Gazette at all?
Not unless I come across something. You might have, but if it's, you know, you...
I will send you something, because they did a very nice article on .nyc, and I say that because they mentioned my name a number of times in a positive way. So anybody who does that is either my family or, in this case, some guy, Adam, some reporter, who is, there's the link to it, who is did a very nice... Oh, okay. Oh, thank
Uh,
you.
and
Uh,
also, Phil, I posted the link to de Blasio's speech.
Okay, I'm afraid to click anything now, so I'll take
yeah,
a look
yeah.
at it after. I did hear, was it last week? And I think I sent you an email, Tom. I heard .NYC on CBS, local radio a number of
Oh, okay.
times. Yeah, I was really surprised about it, but I don't know how that came about, other than some announcement that maybe you or the city put out. I mean,
Yeah,
was
It it might have had. I don't know. There is some stuff out. I saw a little brief article in the AM New York uh, talking about the.
yeah. I think I got a copy of that as well.
but it was nice to hear it on the radio because I'm
Rather than making the distinction that to get one right now you need a trademark, but once it's open, once you've got the land rush and general availability, you don't need that.
Yeah. Um, all right. Yeah, I didn't see the CBS one, Phil, but with the sunrise starting, there have been several articles, so there's no surprise there.
and
Uh,
this was on the radio though, not
This
publication.
is radio. Okay, yeah, okay.
880
Yeah, I listened to WMIC, so I don't get CBS. I haven't heard anything about it on WMIC.
yeah, yeah.
So
I heard that.
it might be good to reach out to them actually.
I think NPR, it's a natural for NPR, and
Right.
I actually yesterday I had a guy, where is it? Someone handed me a card down at the NYU event from a Thornton McHenry, a reporter for Cranes, New York, who I emailed this morning, and I thought that he might be interested in the situation with the existing local businesses and the disadvantage that they're in. Vis-a-vis getting their names in a timely manner. And
I don't know if you mentioned that, but maybe you're familiar, Phil. But one of the issues is in the original application, there were quite a few provisions for existing businesses, nonprofits, businesses that had some kind of city license or whatever. But that just kind of got blown away, disappeared. I'm pretty sure that happened under Bloomberg.
yeah, well,
But there didn't seem to be any possibility of resurrecting.
there's not yet. So far, there hasn't been, and there is the example, the model that the Londoners have given, though, in terms of giving priorities, as they call it, to existing businesses. So maybe with that. With that example, with that good example from our friends in London, maybe the city will take another look at the situation. And maybe, yes, Robert.
Thing too is that in relationship to particularly those groups that are identified in the original application, it doesn't seem to me it would be difficult for the city to set up a process whereby those businesses and organizations could request to the city that they be reserved for that.
Yeah. Either way, or both ways,
Which would then allow them in at a different phase.
Yep, just to remember, it will take longer, and that's what the cities, there's pressure from New Star. They want to get this thing done. They want to have it completed. They want to make their money, and I can't blame them. But it is the city's responsibility to do this in a responsible manner, and that will take longer than August 8th. It's not, you can't notify and take in priority rights in a matter of days, and so I don't know what it's going to take to get them to recognize this. I hope they do, and we'll see what happens.
One of the things that has struck me, and I think we really need to sort of push more is to bring it more out in the open, particularly to both to do outreach to city council, who have got, many times have got much closer relationships to local businesses and organizations, and particularly around the neighborhood thing, but also just have it be an issue. I think at that last week's meeting, Gail Brewer, Manhattan Borough President, participated for much of the time, and she was taking a pretty progressive stand with the concern about local businesses. And I think if it gets out of the, out of the sort of relatively behind
closed doors.
Face publishing the list of neighborhood names, for example, and the reserved names, and starting to get some discussion about that.
Yeah.
But I think, New Star not interested, I don't think, in doing much in the way of making changes, unless they could see that it could really boost, awareness and sales. And the city, it's like they don't want to get into something that would be too complicated.
Keep it simple is where they're at now, and that's that's to New Star's advantage and the city's disadvantage, I think. So we had this meeting this morning, as I was mentioning, with the Van Allen Institute, and the idea was that their schedule, again, the timing is a problem. They have some events coming up in November that they'd like to tie this into. And, how we, with August 8th, the current cliff, how we manage to get the city's awareness as to, what the opportunities are for public names and public spaces, like the neighborhood names and the public spaces that I referenced yesterday, and what the planning processes should be around them. To let City Hall. I think what the outcome of today's meeting was that we want to let City Hall know that there are these potential additional information that can be helpful in planning these developments, and be patient, and let's extend this period for a while. And
right.
I
think also one of the things that occurred to me about the public spaces is saying maybe this is something that the Internet Society and the geek community can put together, some kind of organization around that. Because in a sense, I think that if you're going to have these public spaces, I'm not sure, I think the city is more constrained in terms of what it could do in designing and developing those public spaces, that concerns about what liability the city would have for information that was posted on these public spaces. Whereas if a community, a city-based group of both of geeks and advocacy organizations could put this together and either go in the land rush or else ask the city and say, look, here's a set of names that we would like to reserve and to develop as public spaces. And I think technically I don't think that would be a problem in terms of if politically it was acceptable to the city. And again, here's a situation where I think getting the city council and other groups and making the process more public would be one of those disruptive things, but one of the positive disruptive dynamics that comes out of opening up a process to greater public participation.
I think that was, some of that was touched on at our last meeting, and I just, Phil, not to weigh you down too much, but there's a link I just put up to the report that I put together for our May 12th advisory board meeting. So I think a lot of what Robert is talking about was discussed at that meeting, and needs to be followed up upon. And I hope we get there.
I heard to talk about it on YouTube too, because again, last week when we talked about some of these things, we didn't actually ever go live, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Tom?
I'm not clear, but we're talking about
with Rudy, which was discussing the advisory board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we ever went live on that.
Well, we're live now, so
we're live now, so it won't hurt if we repeat some of those.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting. How can anyone object to a repetition? So, but another thing that one of the things that I'm feeling negligent on is I did get a request from Mr. Merritt about the premium names, with my comments that the high bid auctions was hardly a progressive approach to distributing them. He asked for the alternatives. So he said, okay, so tell me something else. So I had reached out to a person or two who I think are probably working on it, but I guess I'm reminding myself here as I speak that I can't. We were requested as board members to, if you have a criticism, give me a solution. So I've been critical of the high bidder approach to distributing names, but I haven't come out. I haven't detailed an alternative at this point. So if anybody's
maybe in
listening,
that situation, maybe the same thing could be done with those as with the neighborhood names, namely reserve those names and set up a licensing agreement.
That I'll wait for you to get back in here. We're in another pause, and
by which those yes, yeah. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. I got you. Yeah. You back? Okay. Yeah. Well, you remember KW, who has joined us here on occasion. Robert, do you ring a bell? The woman.
Yes, I remember. Yeah. Yes.
And she has this idea, which we haven't really explored very much, though. Of if these are such valuable properties, why are we just giving them away? This is a very progressive idea. Why are we giving them away as for $25 a year? Even if we get the right person for hotels.nyc, why are they only paying $25 a year for it when they're making $1 million? Isn't there?
Well, the licensing agreement could, if it was done under a licensing agreement, that could be addressed. That could be part of the license.
Yeah, I agree.
Whether it's a percentage of the proceeds or whether it's agreed upon higher price. I think that would be a reasonable thing. Also, generate a source of revenue for the city that would be, if it was a licensing thing, that could be an ongoing thing. Whereas, the price, the auction would only presumably only affect the price in the first year's registration.
Right.
And then after that, they could get them for $20 a year.
Right. But if you look at the analogy with real estate, with real estate, there are different tax categories depending upon you're a one-family home or a power plant on the East River, and Con Ed on a square foot basis pays a lot more, or does a 50-story office building than the homeowner, and which is more equitable? What's the equitable price? I don't know, but I don't think there's anything that would stop the city from saying, okay, you want one of these premium names, we'll sell it at one option is we'll sell it at an auction, and we'll take a percentage of revenue thereafter. And I'm not aware of the prohibition, anything that stops that from being considered, at least. And I don't know.
It's tricky though. I think it's some of those changes are tricky, in terms of what's established practice. But I think the licensing thing could really, be developed into a really innovative aspect of the TLD as a whole. In other words, that recognizing that this then becomes part of the governance process of what are the terms of which are managed. And I don't think there's really been, and in a sense, the neighborhood names could be treated as public domains.
Yeah, well, I think I think they have. They're leaning towards licensing the neighborhood names at this point. I'd have to say. That's.
So what did you say? What did you say? Sorry, I missed that.
I said they are leaning towards licensing the neighborhood names at this point.
Right.
I mean, that is
Right.
the.
And I'm talking about making that a more substantial, broader basis of licensing. That it wouldn't just be the neighborhood domains, but could be a lot of other domains could be licensed on a license basis.
Yeah. I'm looking for something here. Here we are. I'm just trying to see if I can bring up my. I got a call coming. Can I ask someone to fill in for a minute? I got to.
Yeah. Why don't you mute your phone when you're talking? So
I'll do that.
I mean, your hangout. Yeah. So so Phil, any thoughts?
Well,
I will say, by the way, in making a list of the neighborhoods, I have corrected the spelling of Throg's Neck.
Yeah, that actually came up with someone. I forgot. Another person had the same thing. Apparently, Robert Moses had a big effect on their town's name, and but that's good. I'm not clear, and it was breaking in now for the neighborhoods. There is going to be licensing, what Tom was saying?
Yes, there is. They seem to be quite happy with that idea, and partly doing that instead of Tom's original proposal of a neighborhood trust kind of thing that he had talked about earlier. So yes, I think it is. I think they seem quite happy about that idea, and now, I mean, the issue now, and that's where I think there's a real opportunity, both with the neighborhood names, but also more broadly, to look at how do we, what's the nature of that license? That, in a way, I think is a very creative opportunity to.
Oh, you froze.
To look at some of these other generic type services and functions. I froze.
Well, you did, and then you came back on. So now you're working. I see Tom.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's a little odd because I don't know when I'm talking to the to the ether and no one's here.
I see Tom is off the phone now, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess he's on back. Are you with us, Tom?
But I don't think he hears me. Or us. He does. No.
There we go. I just have to unmute myself. Sorry. Yes, we're all set here. The thing that I was doing was I was trying to make better use. Yesterday, I made a presentation at this Liberation Technology, LibTech meeting at NYU, and I thought that I would just make use. I'm trying to figure out exactly what to do with those slides, and trying to see if I can show them here just for practicality.
Yeah, if you can open that.
I think.
Presentation. And then do a screen share.
Screen share. Let's see if that works. So there we are.
There you go. Okay.
Right, but it's small. Is the only thing.
Well, you can make it larger. You can reshape.
As I do that, I see.
The screen.
So if I do this, if I make it full screen here on mine, is it full screen there? Pretty much so at this point.
Yeah, it's. I'm not. I think how you had it just before that was a little bit better.
Really?
That it occupied more of the. Yeah, now it's more. Oh, it came and gone left.
All
right.
It's about 2 inches from the borders.
All right. And well, what this was, if I may just, yesterday I gave this presentation over at NYU, as I was talking about, and the part I didn't really and just let me run through it very quickly for Phil's purpose basis benefit, hopefully. I was talking about how when they made this commissioner's plan of 1811 and laid out Manhattan's street map, that they put in the streets from 1st to 236th Street and 1st Avenue to 10th Avenue, 11th Avenue, and one of the things they neglected to do, because in 1811 they didn't exist, which was a strange and unknown thing to me, but they didn't put in any parks. So in the 1840s they ended up carving out what is now Central Park, and there were about, at the time, about 300 people going on Wikipedia's story now, living in Central Park, whom they evicted. And the challenge that I brought up yesterday was, and that was something called Seneca Village, which housed these people, and this is a little drawing of the village, apparently. And so, one of the things that we need to do now is come up with public spaces of a digital type. What are the spaces that we want? And we know some of them, like the neighborhood names, it's clear what they are. But those will be, again, they'll be controlled and hopefully licensed to provide them as open spaces. But what's the equivalent of the parks which we neglected back in the 1811? And those might be names like simple names like forums.nyc, issues.nyc, discuss.nyc, and maybe there's a possibility that we could put these names aside. And if we were to do that as public, public spaces, we still need some type of oversight. We need things like servers and tech people and such, and we need some money to make it all happen. And my idea was, which I thought was the new idea yesterday, was to perhaps charge $1 a name per year. That if you were buying a domain name, that $1 be thrown into some type of a kitty that would operate our public spaces, whether these might include just those group of names that I showed up there, or maybe there are 20 of them at the end, or if it includes the neighborhood names. But it shouldn't be beyond, I think there's a precedent that was set with the cable TV franchise, that if Phil, if you have cable, you pay $1 a month for the public access channels, and these are, in a sense, public access spaces. And if we were to charge a nominal fee for or a small fee, let's call it, for making these for all domain names, and use that to develop the others, I think there's something to talk about there. And of course the question becomes, how do you manage those spaces? And that's a longer conversation than we have for today, but I just thought that I'd see one.
I had a typo on that last one, by the way.
Yeah.
I missed a D. Stakeholder, yeah.
Oh.
Anyhow, sorry.
All right, right. Okay, I will fix that up, and that's yeah. So that's
again, the other thing that occurred to me is looking at the sort of model of NPR and public radio, WNYC, of a listener, community-supported place. That could, I think, particularly with the troubles that WBAI is going through, I've been spending a lot more time listening to WNYC, and they have both listener-supported support and also foundation support and also sponsorship, which is not, for the most part, really doesn't fall into, barely falls into the realm of advertising. It doesn't seem intrusive or whatever, and so the issue of looking at that sort of model might be one to pursue.
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing too about public spaces is, on the list of reserved names that Jeff Merritt had sent us, there were like 4 parks, I think. Bryant Park, Central Park, Prospect Park, and maybe there was one other. All of those parks, they're public spaces, and frankly, if you've looked at the Parks Department, the way the parks are presented on the Parks Department, I would say they're rather disappointing. and that could be a real opportunity to look at some framework, maybe involving things like the Horticultural Society and other things to develop, a much more detailed and much more interesting presentation of the parks, the history, what's in them, what's, other kind of things like that. That would be something that, and if you look at the Central Park website, that's maintained by the Central Park Conservancy. The city doesn't do that, so it's not costing anything. It's a great site, and looking at the same sort of model for those public spaces that, could easily get lost in the process.
Yeah. I had changing the subject a little bit. I was just looking at my mail, and I forwarded to both of you a message that I gotten from Council Member Callos, Ben Callos, who new guy from Manhattan, young fellow, very energetic, and he has 7 bills that he calls transparency and technology transparency bills. And one of the things that I sent him the other day, and I don't see it in the heading here for those bills, but one of the things that there was an article in the Times the other day about California and how they were pushing legislation there that I presume all sites in California, I'm not sure exactly what it applied to, but had to have notation, information on them about the cookies and who was which ones were there for what purposes and things of that nature. And I sent that to Phil to consider, and this is not a strong area for myself, but to consider for .nyc. It would be nice on .nyc sites if we knew who was using our information for what purposes. And so I've forwarded those 7 pieces of legislation to you folks, so you can take a look at it. And if anybody's listening, Ben Callos, Kallos, is the council member who has done this, and good guy overall. And so let's see. Something else. I'm distracted by my email. I will close it. I apologize.
Are there any co-sponsors on those bills with Callos, do you know?
I didn't get a chance to look at them carefully. As I said, I was just starting a little bit of a conversation here. But you should have the email there. So hopefully we can see that. But Ben is really good. Actually, we were challenged, and we're missing something here. We're missing something that Ben is going to up at MIT, as I recall it being mentioned in a meeting we had with Jonathan Askin of Brooklyn Law School, and he was saying that they're having a legal hackathon up at MIT in mid-June, and if we fit in there in some way or another, he was encouraging us to participate, and I've barely given it a thought, and don't really know how what it is that how one of our projects can fit in there, but I mention it, and if anybody has a thought, please pass it along, and who knows, maybe we'll end up, we'll finally get to MIT. I'm not sure. We'll see how that works out.
Yeah, no, I think it would be good to think about. When is this happening? Mid-June
sometime. So I think I heard either the 12th or the 15th, somewhere right in there. And, so he's with Brooklyn Law School and thinks legally, and so maybe he'll take us into consideration. I'll bug him again, but I'm hoping that other people are looking here, and you can email me. I don't know how clear it is on this system here with YouTube and all. That should be. I should spend more time looking at it. CHERE.com. I'll put up my email address here for anybody inquiry, and take out the space, I guess. But that's how to find me. And I guess, yeah, I really need to spend more time seeing how this thing follows up beyond this live period, which should end in a few minutes. And but I
it might be interesting, to look at maybe combining with a with some hearings on .nyc, but the sort of broader issue of this that we're in looks like, and how .nyc can be a space to showcase that.
We missed a couple of words there, Robert. I'm sorry. Can you just?
Okay, I was
reiterate
thinking that it might be interesting to talk to him about the idea of a public hearing on this sort of set of bills, and more broadly on the issue of a digital city, where we're going as a digital city, and the role that .nyc can play in that.
Ben Callos, absolutely, good idea.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We should put our eggs in Ben Callos's basket these days, because he's really very good. To have 7. I mean, we're 5 months into the administration, and he's got 5 bills that he's proposing on transparency. He's obviously singing the right tune there, and I look forward to working with him. So maybe we can even get him here one day, and maybe that could be a topic of our discussion next week or in the next few weeks or something, and we can look at these pieces of legislation. So I'm starting to hear the buses go by, and it is 5 o'clock, and so if there's anything else, Phil, do you have any questions, or Robert? Other than that, I think I'm inclined to end us on time this week if there is no pressing reason to continue. We're okay with that?
Sounds fine with me.
All right, good enough. All right, great. We'll see you soon, hopefully next week, and take care of yourself in the meantime.
All right, you too, everybody.
Okay, all right, bye, Phil.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Tom. Okay.